that. We kind of went through politics for a second, and this will kind of maybe be the first time I bring it up, but certainly not the last. We have the birth of the modern conservative and the modern liberal. Conservatives tend to be Republican, and what that basically means, we're going to get a whole bunch of stuff here, so bear with me. Conservatives, first off, they believe in lower taxes. They believe in helping businesses first. They believe in something called trickle-down economics. They believe in the traditional way of doing things, and they believe in isolationism. So all these things kind of encompass the conservative. They're not going to go and ruffle too many feathers. They're going to say, just let the country run its case. All right? Now, one thing that we did talk about already was A. Mitchell Palmer. A. Mitchell Palmer, notice he's out to get the Reds, correct? And in his view, what? Everyone is a Red. Even the women have beards, and the umpires, and the baseball players. And so maybe he's blinded. Even the baby has a beard, right? And so this Red Scare, this A. Mitchell Palmer raids, kind of shows us how crazy we get. Now, around this time as well, in the 1920s, seeing as how well the war went, there's a feeling of cultural superiority, that we are up on high, correct? That we started out as an infant, correct? The Union, and we've grown into where all nations are anxious to be friendly towards Uncle Sam. Notice he has gotten fatter with money, probably, and notice he's also got the most powerful navy, and so that's important. And you see all the hands coming out with different nations. I really like this. So cultural superiority basically means that you think you are better than other cultures because you've proven yourself. Kind of goes with social Darwinism, etc., expansionist, imperialist, all that stuff. No. It also goes with the saying that we've talked about before. It comes back, and that is the WASP. Remember what WASP stands for? Acronym. It is White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It means you're white, came from England, and you're Catholic. You're Christian, not Catholic. And so that now there's also a birth of another thing, and they're called the Nordics. The Nordics later on for Hitler become called the Aryans. But if you've seen Great Gatsby, when Tom comes out and he asks Nick, have you read Bedard's book, The Rise of the Colored Empire? And he said, no. Well, everyone ought to read it. It's a good book. And he basically says that if they didn't do something with Colored Empire, which kind of goes into civil rights, that they would overrun the Nordic race. And he says, I'm Nordic, you're Nordic. And so that goes into cultural superiority, and so interesting nonetheless. Now, we have a rise of this cultural superiority, this Red Scare, and we have a massive media circus come about, and it is over two men, Nicola Sacco and Mr. Vanzetti. All right? And so what happened is these two men were arrested on a charge that they had committed a bank robbery and killed somebody. Problem is the evidence was not there. What we do have is that they are Italian immigrants and they are self-proclaimed anarchists. So because they said they're anarchists, etc., we went and found them. Now, the evidence points to the fact that there's not enough evidence to kill them. Yet because we are in the time of the Red Scare, they face the electric chair. And so maybe because of the fear of communism, we might have killed innocent people. But at the same thing, they are anarchists. And so it kind of goes along with the national security or personal freedom. And so national security won out again here. Second time, right? Now, two important acts come about here. In 1921, we have the Emergency Quota Act, and in 1924, we have the National Origins Act. Now, the Quota Act, as you can see, Europe is flooding into us because they're horribly decimated after the war, and they want to come here. So Uncle Sam, the United States, decides to put a quota, and it's based on the census of the last year. That can only be 3%, and it kind of fluctuates. If you're a WASP country, there'd be a higher thing, whereas if you were a country that might have been communism, you're going to get a lower number. And so that is the idea of the Quota Act, the Emergency Quota Act. Now, this later goes a little bit further to an actual restriction, and that's called the National Origins Act in 1924. This again went off population growth, etc., and the whole idea was to get rid of the undesirables. Now, no, this is not an Asian person, a Q or something. It's actually a bomb. And so they're saying to get out of the U.S. the person who has been undesirable and who could potentially be a bomb for our country. And so these things coupling together, we have the Palmer Rays and the Red Scare, we have the nativism with Sacco and Vanzetti, and these quota acts bodes that the 1920s were very untrusting of anybody from any other country. And so we kind of close our doors off and we go to this, and it actually gives rise to a not-so-friendly group who'd been in the past that we're going to talk about in Section 3 here, and they come back on the scene at this point.